Good morning. My name is Kathleen Kendall-Tackett, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Preclaris Press. And today I'm here with our author, Dr. Diane Sanford. And the topic today is actually on mindfulness, women, and mood. And Dr. Sanford is going to actually share with us a little bit about what are some of the areas where women are vulnerable and how can mindfulness help.
Hi, Kathy. So,
Hi, Diane.
you want to start over?
No, it's good.
So, there are many times in a woman's life where she's particularly vulnerable to stress. When she's having a baby, going through midlife, menopause, and the reason is that her hormones are colliding with situational changes. So, in my practice, I see a lot of women that are going through life changes. And it's very important that they have a method of coping, which my method of coping is mindfulness-based skills, because there are many emotional ups and downs that are legitimate, that are triggered by their hormones, stirred up by the situations they're in. And we need to have tools to rely on so that we can feel better.
So when you're talking about things like these hormonal changes, I mean, I think a lot of people just think the only thing you can do to change those is to just take medications. But it sounds like you're suggesting that actually mindfulness can actually help with some of these biological shifts.
It can totally help with the biological shifts. And I just got back from a 2-day psychopharmacology conference. And I was so happy to hear the presenter say, yes, medicine kind of stops our brains from being on fire, but lifestyle change is really what makes the difference. And that's what we're talking about in my new book, Stress Less, Live Better. We talk about the 4 pillars of health,
right?
Sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, and how those help you cope better with life and the ups and downs it brings. And in particular, how mindfulness currently is being shown to help with the biological shifts in pregnancy, the biological shifts postpartum, with fertility. So we know it works, and now we have to teach other people, like we are in the book, to use it more skillfully in their daily lives.
Well, so you had mentioned earlier about how there's a couple things that are particularly helpful. You said, you mentioned a little bit about kind of how it helps people cope. But the other thing you talked about was self-compassion. And so how might mindfulness actually help with that, and what does that do?
I'm so happy you brought that up, because that's key when we're talking about women. So self-compassion teaches us not to judge ourselves or other people. And as you and I know, being in lactation, postpartum, birth trauma, the things we do, women are constantly comparing themselves to each other.
Yeah.
In our digital age, it's worse than ever before. So self-compassion, which is one of my 5 skills, teaches you how not to judge yourself, not to judge others, do what's in your best interest, be okay making the personal choice that you and your baby or child or whoever it is deserve, and not feeling bad about it.
Yeah. Well, I know that, because breastfeeding was sort of countercultural for so many years. That was actually something we used to tell mothers, is to be comfortable with your choice and kind of prepare something you could say to people when they're being critical. But I think also to not sort of taking in all that negative stuff. And you probably saw that study. Somebody just sent me a link for it about how parents who read a lot of parenting books actually are more likely to be depressed.
So this is the thing, right? The more you read, the more you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is that you follow, the more your mind, which is already vulnerable during these biological shifts, is going to tend toward negative, stressful thoughts and worrying and thinking you're not measuring up, whatever. And this needs to stop. And mindfulness is a great antidote. And the way that I've packaged it in Stress Less and Live Better, it's 5 simple skill sets. There's lots of exercises. There's questions for reflection. You can do it. And it will not only help you during these biological times, biological shifts in your life, but for everyday well-being and health.
Yeah, and I think actually that's really important. Actually, one thing I just recently learned is the hormone oxytocin, which we all talk about as like the feel-good hormone, and it does all these wonderful things,
Yeah.
bonding, and all the ways. And it's the anti-stress hormone. But one thing, unfortunately, that it does is when oxytocin levels are high, like they are after birth, is it
Yes,
creates
yes.
an openness which allows you to connect, but it also creates a vulnerability to things like criticism.
So, yeah, so that's the thing. So we have these times, again, when we're pregnant, when we just had our children, when we're in the throes of midlife and our hormones start changing, when we're going through menopause, that we have a heightened sensitivity or openness, like you said. That's a great word for it. And so these are going to be times when every woman to some degree is going to have more difficulty.
Yeah.
And, that was part of the impetus for writing the book, so that we're not floundering, even though we're going to flounder, right? Because these are challenging times, as you and I know, but we're not floundering and taking in all the negativity that our society puts out when we're biologically vulnerable.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, yeah. I'd say, first of all, thank you for sharing all this great information. I think, again, like I said, I think especially with physiological changes, I think a lot of people just assume that, the only way you can treat that is with medications. And it's so nice to know that there's alternatives and there are things that women can easily incorporate into their lives.
Absolutely.
So again, I'd like to say thank you very much. And Diane's book is called Stress Less, Live Better. It's available at Proclaris Press. And tune in next time and we will be happy to see you.
We will. Take care.